Breaking news, a dramatic U.S.-led escalation
in the Middle East, where there have been fresh strikes and counter-strikes overnight between Israel and Iran.
At 22:14 local time, 16 Israeli F-35 Adir fighter jets were already deep inside Iranian airspace, crossing the Zagros Mountains at 38,000 feet with 30 petroleum targets on their list and a straight line home. 9 days of American-backed precision strikes had done the work. Every known S-300 battery, every radar installation, every command node that Iran had spent decades building, all of it systematically located, targeted, and eliminated. The pilots had every reason to believe the sky was clear. They were wrong. What Israeli intelligence did not know was that Iran had been running a deception operation from the very first strike. The S-300 battery that satellite imagery confirmed as destroyed on March 3rd was never the real one. It was a decoy, convincing enough to fool the analysts, convincing enough to get crossed off the target list. The real battery had been driven 50 kilometers into the mountains, silent, cold, waiting, and at 22:14, it had all 16 jets locked in its sights. America was about to change everything. To understand exactly why this night became one of the most extraordinary combat operations in modern history, you need to understand what the F-35 Adir actually is and what Israel chose to sacrifice to make this mission possible. The F-35 Adir is Israel's version of the most capable stealth fighter ever built. Its radar cross-section under normal combat configuration is roughly the size of a marble. At engagement range, Iran's best air defense systems cannot detect it. It disappears into the background noise of the atmosphere, invisible, untouchable. But there is a condition attached to that invisibility. And on this night, that condition changed everything. When a pilot loads an F-35 with external weapons, 4 Spice 1 to 1000 precision-guided bombs on wing pylons and 2 GBU, 3-1 JDAMs in the internal bays, the stealth advantage disappears. Every external pylon, every rack, every weapon mounted on the outside of the airframe multiplies the radar return. The jet transforms from an invisible ghost into something radar systems can actually detect and track. Israel calls this configuration beast mode. More bombs, more destruction. More targets eliminated in a single pass. But the trade-off is absolute. You are flying into defended airspace in an aircraft that the enemy can now see. Israel made that trade deliberately. They believed there was nothing left in Iran's sky capable of detecting them. 9 days of strikes had seen to that. And here is the part no one is talking about. The S-300 crew, sitting cold and silent in those mountains, had been waiting for exactly this moment. No radar emissions, no electronic signatures, nothing to detect or track or target. Just a crew in the dark with 150 kilometers of engagement range and 16 high-value targets flying straight toward them in beast mode configuration, fully loaded, fully visible, and completely unaware. The battery had 90 seconds to take the shot before American electronic warfare assets could respond. The moment the S-300 radar activated, an EA-18G Growler from the USS Abraham Lincoln's Air Wing, orbiting western Iran specifically to catch exactly this kind of threat, triangulated the source in seconds and pushed the coordinates through a data link to a second Growler 60 miles south. An AGM-88 HARM missile came off the rail. Seeker locked onto the emission frequency, accelerating past Mach 2, heading directly for the antenna array with one purpose and no other instructions. Inside the lead Adir, the pilot watched the threat diamond pulse on his tactical display. The HARM was 70 seconds out. The S-300 crew had 40 seconds to transition from search mode to continuous fire control track. If that antenna switched modes before the missile arrived, the next thing on every scope in the formation would be an Iranian surface-to-air missile with 16 possible targets to choose from. 60 seconds. The S-300 pulse rate increased. 50. The beam narrowed. The crew cycling faster. 40. Still searching. Not locked. The HARM smashed into the antenna array at Mach 2.1. $15 million of Iranian air defense erased in a flash that lit the mountain ridge like a second sunrise visible from 40 miles away. 9 days of patience. 4 seconds away from a completely different outcome. But the lesson that moment delivered was not reassuring. Degraded and destroyed turned out to be very different words. If one S-300 had survived 9 days of coalition strikes by simply driving into the mountains and sitting cold, the question was not whether Iran had hidden more. The question was how many more were out there, waiting in silence, ready to announce themselves the moment the next formation entered their range. The pilots pressed east, because what came next was going to be harder. There was a second problem weighing on every pilot in that formation beyond Iranian missiles. Fuel. 1,800 kilometers separated Nevatim Air Base from Tehran. 1,800 kilometers back. On every previous operation, that math required aerial refueling from KC-135 tankers orbiting western Iraq. But those tankers were so predictable that Iranian intelligence had been tracking their orbit patterns for days. Every time the tankers repositioned, Tehran knew a strike package was inbound. Tonight, the Adirs carried external drop tanks instead. No tankers, no safety net, no room for a single unplanned maneuver. Think of it as crossing a desert with exactly enough fuel to reach the far side. No detours, no wrong turns. Every second of evasive maneuvering during the S-300 engagement had burned fuel from reserves that technically did not exist, and they had not even reached Tehran yet. 12 kilometers from the Chevron depot, the largest petroleum storage facility in northwestern Tehran. 11 tanks holding 260 million liters of fuel. The second threat of the night appeared on the formation's sensors. A Pantsir S-1, Russian-supplied mobile short-range point defense system. 20-kilometer missile envelope. Inside 4 kilometers, twin 30mm autocannons firing 5 to 1,000 rounds per minute under continuous radar direction. Parked between the storage tanks where the tank farm's own geometry made it invisible to satellite imagery. Hidden precisely because it was surrounded by the targets Israel came to destroy. And here is where American technology made the difference that changed the outcome. The Adir escort aircraft, still transitioning from the S-300 engagement 50 kilometers behind the main formation, caught the Pantsir activation on its distributed aperture system. 6 infrared cameras mounted around the F-35 airframe that see simultaneously in every direction, showing the pilot threats that exist completely outside his line of sight. The system flagged the contact instantly. The lead pilot had the information. He pressed on anyway, because the bombs had to fall. A stable bomb run means flying a predictable path directly toward a radar-directed autocannon for 8 full seconds. 8 seconds of 30mm fire against an aircraft that cannot maneuver because the weapon needs a clean, stable release to guide accurately. The Spice 1-1000 released off the wing pylon and extended its folding glide wings. No rocket motor, no thermal plume. GPS steered it toward the target area. Then, in the final seconds, the bomb's electro-optical seeker photographed the ground below and compared what it saw pixel by pixel against a 3-dimensional reference image loaded by imagery analysts before the mission. Launched. Like facial recognition for fuel storage infrastructure. Circular error probable 3 meters. The length of a standard car. Weapon away. Then the brake. Hard right. Flares punching from the dispensers in pairs. The Pantsir fired 1 missile. The F-35's built-in ASQ-239 electronic warfare system flooded the seeker frequency with interference. The guidance tone warbled in the pilot's helmet. Faded. The missile's track bent away into empty sky. Tank number 2 went first. 30 million liters of petroleum atomized into a vapor cloud that ignited before the fragments from the warhead finished traveling outward. The fireball climbed 300 meters in 2 seconds, orange and black, rolling upward into the night sky above Tehran. The escort arrived 60 seconds later, 1 spice through the Pantsir chassis. The radar emission cut to black mid-sweep. $30 million of Russian air defense, hidden for days between fuel tanks, destroyed by a glide bomb that costs less than the radar dish it landed on. 2 surface-to-air missile engagements in the first 7 minutes of the strike. 0 margin on either one. 4 seconds on the first, 1 missile on the second, and the hardest part of the night was still ahead. Then came the problem that nobody had modeled. The problem that their own success created. Tanks 4, 7, and 9 went within seconds of each other. 4 impacts merging into a single inferno that threw orange light across neighborhoods a kilometer away. And the smoke column from those burning tanks climbed through 5,000 feet and expanded east across the Tehran basin directly into the approach corridors of every remaining aircraft in the strike package. Their own bombs had built a wall that the next wave had to fly through. A mobile GPS jammer activated somewhere in the Tehran basin, truck-mounted, domestically built, moving every few hours to avoid detection. The Israelis had not found this one. Noise flooded the GPS frequencies that every GBU 31 inches the formation depended on for terminal guidance. The spice bombs carry an electro-optical backup, but petroleum smoke had degraded that simultaneously, both guidance systems failing at the same moment because of two threats that did not know the other existed. 60 kilometers west, an F-15 IROM weapons systems officer was running his APG-82 radar in ground mapping mode, painting terrain through the smoke the way sonar maps the ocean floor. When the depot position on his radar sat 5 meters west of where GPS said it should be, he ran the calculation again. Same drift. He pushed corrected coordinates through the data link to every aircraft in the package. Not perfect precision, but enough to put 2,000-pound bombs on fuel infrastructure instead of residential buildings 400 meters away. Nobody assigned him that task. Nobody told him that calculation would be necessary. One weapons officer in a back seat, doing math on the fly, holding the mission together at the moment it was closest to falling apart. And then a MiG-29 rolled off a dispersed runway in the dark south of Tehran. Radar cold, no electronic emissions. Iran's Air Force had been assessed as effectively grounded. Nobody told the MiG-29 pilot. Using only its passive infrared search and track system, a sensor that detects engine heat without broadcasting anything detectable, the fighter closed to 8 kilometers behind an F-16 Barak, descending toward the southern targets. 8 kilometers is inside missile release range. The Barak pilot had no warning. His radar warning receiver showed nothing because there was nothing to show. The Adir, transitioning south from the Pantsir engagement, caught it on the distributed aperture system, a moving heat source against the city's thermal background that did not match any friendly track in the formation. Fire control radar locked from 30 kilometers. The MiG-29 pilot's warning receiver lit up. He understood exactly what an F-35 fire control lock meant. Hard descending brake, diving into the thermal clutter of the burning depots, using the heat of a city on fire as cover. The Adir held the track for 3 seconds before the thermal noise consumed it. No shots fired, but 8 kilometers is inside missile range. The Barak pilot was seconds from an engagement he never would have detected until the missile was already tracking his exhaust plume. American technology flying with Israeli crews pulled him back from that edge. Here is what this night actually means for America. And it is the part that most coverage never reaches. Every aircraft in that formation carried American technology. The F-35 Adir is built on American engineering, American software, American stealth architecture. The EA-18G Growler that neutralized the hidden S-300 launched from an American carrier strike group. The AGM-88 HARM that destroyed the antenna array before the crew could fire is an American weapon. The data link that allowed one ROM weapons officer to push corrected GPS coordinates to 16 aircraft simultaneously in the middle of an active strike is an American system. What often gets overlooked is this. America did not simply sell Israel weapons. America built an entire combat ecosystem that operates as a unified network across multiple aircraft types, multiple crews, and multiple nations simultaneously. That ecosystem performed in real time under conditions no simulation ever fully captured. GPS jamming, petroleum smoke degrading electro-optical guidance, a hidden air defense battery, an unexpected fighter threat. Fuel states that left zero margin for a single additional problem. Every American taxpayer who funds this military should understand what that investment actually produces. Not individual platforms, not individual weapons. A combat network sophisticated enough to adapt in real time, correct for threats that did not exist when the mission was planned, and still deliver weapons within 3 meters of intended targets through smoke and jamming and the thermal chaos of a burning city. Our men and women aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln were part of this operation. American sailors, American aviators, American electronic warfare specialists making real-time decisions that kept Allied pilots alive when Iran's last surprises came out of the dark. This is what American military investment actually looks like when it operates. At the absolute edge of what is possible. 4 depot fires, 2 surface-to-air missile engagements, 1 hidden S-300 that survived 9 days of strikes, a GPS jammer nobody located, a MiG-29 nobody expected, smoke that degraded every targeting pod in the formation, fuel states with no margin for a single wrong decision. And through every one of those failures and surprises and threats that no mission planner put on the target list, the weapons found their targets. The pilots came home. For 40 years, Iran built and refined its air defense architecture specifically to make a night like this impossible, to make the cost of entry so high that no adversary would accept it. For the first time, that architecture faced a combat system it was never designed to defeat. Did Iran just discover that its most sophisticated remaining defenses are no longer enough to stop what America and its allies can put in the sky? Or is there something still hidden in those mountains that nobody has found yet? Drop your answer below. I read every single comment. If you want daily coverage that does not sugarcoat what is actually happening, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I post every single day, and I am not stopping.